Okay, so get ready to peek behind the curtain. You guys sent in some really interesting excerpts from Rules of the Game, The Second Coming of Trump by Joe Holiday.
Yeah.
And this book dives headfirst into the Trump presidency, but it's not your typical, like, political analysis. We're talking about historical symbolism, potential conspiracies, and maybe even a little decoding of reality itself.
Yeah, that's right. It's really more about connecting those dots. It's less about, a blow-by-blow of Trump's term and more about these hidden patterns, these, like, forces that you don't even realize are shaping the world.
Okay, so if this was a movie, it would be more The Matrix than a documentary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Prepare to, like, question everything you thought you knew.
Perfect. Now, one of the first things that grabbed me was how Trump's 2015 campaign wasn't just politics. It was a full-blown spectacle.
It was. And the book, I think, really brings us to life with that image of Trump descending that golden escalator. Neil Young is playing in the background. It was a scene straight out of Hollywood.
Totally. And the book argues that this was deliberate, like this was a strategy that they were going for.
Yeah.
It even uses this example of a reporter from People magazine who was assigned to the event, someone who'd never even, like, covered politics before.
Wow.
And it makes you wonder, like, has that line between entertainment and politics completely vanished?
And if so, I mean, what does that mean for how we consume information, how we choose our leaders? Something to think about.
Totally. And the book argues that this blurring of lines was already in motion. Like, it points to the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Obama famously roasted Trump.
Right.
And the book argues that by giving him that attention, Obama actually gave him more power.
Right, because it claims this wasn't just, a joke.
Yeah.
Obama spent a good chunk of his speech kind of ribbing on Trump, especially about that birther conspiracy, and it legitimized him in a way.
Wow.
Legitimized him as a political figure.
So it's like that old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity. But what I found fascinating is how that connects to this idea of control by division, which the book says that's present in the vice presidential selections of Obama, Biden, and even Trump himself.
Yeah, because it points out that each of these presidents, they selected running mates who were once critics. Think Biden, Harris, Pence. They all challenged their running mates at some point on key issues.
Interesting.
So, it just raises the question, was this intentional? Were these choices about more than just balancing a ticket? Were they about ensuring this level of tension?
Like controlled chaos.
Exactly. Like who or what benefits from keeping everyone, at each other's throats.
Yeah.
But this idea of a larger game being played, that's, like a recurring theme in this book.
Right.
So, for example, it goes into Trump's decades-long presence in the public eye, the cameos in movies, the reality show, The Apprentice. It's suggesting this wasn't just Trump being Trump. This was a calculated strategy.
So he was building his brand long before he ever entered politics.
That's what it wants us to consider.
Interesting. Like, was he always playing the long game, cultivating this persona that would resonate with a certain segment of, American voters?
Yes, it's interesting because, love him or hate him, everyone knew who Trump was before he ever even, announced he was running for anything.
Right.
But the book also takes a hard look at another political dynasty, the Clintons.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pull any punches.
No, it does not.
It goes through all those familiar scandals like Whitewater, Benghazi, the Clinton Foundation, not to relitigate all the details, but to just highlight this persistent image of Hillary Clinton as someone who operates outside the rules.
Right.
And the book argues that this image, whether it's accurate or not, played a key role in Trump's victory.
Right, like those lock her up chants. It wasn't just about emails.
Totally.
It was about this frustration with what people perceive as the untouchability of the elite.
Right, like the system is rigged.
Exactly.
Interesting. Now, when it comes to Trump and his base, the book takes an interesting turn by focusing on his relationship with the Christian right.
Because on the surface, it's like kind of an odd pairing.
Yeah.
You have Trump who, let's be honest, doesn't exactly fit the mold of a traditional Christian.
Right.
Aligning himself with a group that often, champions those very values that he seems to flout.
Right, and the book points to that moment in 2016 when Trump held up that rainbow flag at the Republican National Convention. It was seen as this significant shift, like a rebranding of conservatism in a way.
But it also, I imagine, alienated some of his core supporters who felt like he was compromising on certain values.
Of course. Yeah, it definitely created this tension that the book argues is still defining the conservative movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of tension, The book also delves into Trump's personal views on, faith, and particularly that comment that he made about not needing to ask God for forgiveness.
Right.
And the book argues that it wasn't just like a throwaway comment.
No.
It gets at like the core of his personal philosophy and how that might have even influenced his actions as president.
Of course, because if you don't believe you need forgiveness, does that change how you make decisions, how you approach power?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
That's deep. And speaking of deep, the book then takes a very sharp turn into the transgender movement, specifically focusing on its impact on children.
Yeah, this is where the book gets a little more controversial.
Sure.
It questions this, trend of encouraging, gender exploration at younger and younger ages.
Yeah.
And the long-term implications of things like hormone treatments and surgeries.
Of course, it's a very sensitive topic.
Very much so.
And the book doesn't shy away from expressing concerns about potential harm.
Yeah.
It also raises questions about the impact of transgender athletes on women's sports.
Okay.
Arguing that it undermines fairness and kind of erases some of those hard-won achievements.
It's a perspective that many find challenging, and I think it's important to remember that we're just here exploring these different viewpoints.
Well, of course, yeah. We're just putting it all out there.
Trying to lay it all out there.
Exactly. But as we move further into this deep dive, things are about to get even more intense. We're going to be talking QAnon, predictive programming, even an alleged assassination attempt.
Right. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew, because this book really doesn't hold back.
Buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up. So, we talked about this concept of predictive programming. It's like this idea that events in movies or TV shows kind of foreshadow things to come in real life. Like, do you think that's really a thing?
Right. Like that Trackdown episode with that con man. What was his name? Dr. Walter Trump, who promises to build a wall.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
It is. And the book points to that episode, which, by the way, aired in the 1950s. I mean,
wow, yeah.
As a potential example of this, right? It's like the seeds of this, the Trump presidency, were planted decades earlier.
It's weird how these parallels emerge,
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder if they were predicted, were they like meant to happen? You know what I mean?
Right. Like,
is there something more there?
Like destiny almost. That's, I think, the $1 million question. And I don't think this book pretends to have those answers, but it does, I think, present them in a way.
It makes you think.
That makes you think, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of things that make you question reality.
Right.
The book also talks about that alleged assassination attempt on Trump at that rally. Was it in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, that's right.
And it talks about the timing of it all, like right before the Republican National Convention in 2016, where Hulk Hogan shows up.
Right.
Which is interesting because he's a figure known for, like, staged wrestling matches.
Yeah. Like, it's almost like they're saying that whole thing was orchestrated. It was,
right.
Some kind of, like, performance to bolster Trump's image.
So instead of shying away from danger, he's almost using it to his advantage.
Yeah, no, it's a bold strategy for sure.
It's a very bold move, but the book backs up this theory by pointing to, like, inconsistencies in the story, right? Like there's that photo of the bullet, frozen in midair.
Which a lot of people think is fake.
Right, which a lot of people think is fake. And then, of course, you have the fact that the person who allegedly did it was never found.
Right.
So
never identified, yeah.
It's weird. It's definitely, it's definitely sus, if you will.
It does make you wonder.
Yeah.
But I think that's what the book is trying to get at, is that this skepticism, this questioning of what we're told is the truth is crucial for understanding the world around us.
It's like, don't just take things at face value.
Yeah, exactly. Look beyond the surface.
Right.
Right. Consider these other explanations, even if they seem far-fetched.
Right. Even if they make you uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about, predictive programming, this assassination attempt, and now we're going to go full, like, national treasure here.
Right.
And talk about symbols.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little more intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's arguing that symbols aren't just images. They're powerful tools that can be used to influence our thoughts and our beliefs, even our actions.
Like how brands use their logos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To create that brand recognition.
So yeah, make you want to buy their stuff.
Exactly. But I think it goes even deeper than that. I mean, the book looks at the history of symbols from, ancient banners they used in warfare
Wow.
to flags and logos that we see every single day.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And it's saying these things have always been used to convey a message, to control.
It's like subliminal messaging.
In a way, yeah.
Wow.
It uses the example of Alexander the Great, who really understood the power of symbolism.
Right.
He used it in his clothing, his banners, even his money to project this image of power and divinity.
That's so interesting because it's like those strategies still work today.
Exactly.
Like you think about, political campaigns, they all have their symbols.
Of course.
Like the American flag for patriotism, the dove for peace. It's like they're trying to evoke these specific emotions.
Exactly. And what the book is saying, I think, is we need to be aware of that.
Right.
Like we need to be, critical thinkers.
Don't just buy everything you see.
Exactly. Decode the messages that are being sent.
Yeah, okay. All this talk about symbols and subliminal messages is making my head spin. Can we talk about something a little more concrete, like hair?
Hair.
Trump's hair. The book talks about his hair, like a lot.
It does. It does. And I know it sounds kind of silly.
Yeah.
But it's actually really fascinating.
It is.
Because it talks about personal branding.
Right.
And the way that we, present ourselves to the world. It even compares his hair to Samson in the Bible.
Oh, wow.
Whose strength came from his hair.
So it's like a symbol of his power.
That's one way to interpret it. And, the book argues that Trump, he understands the power of image.
Right.
And his hair, intentionally or not, has become part of that image.
It's iconic.
It is.
Yeah. But it's interesting how they connect it back to this, this idea of symbolism and how these seemingly insignificant details can actually be very significant.
Right. It's all about interpretation, right?
Totally, totally. And speaking of interpretation, the book also analyzes Trump's decision to honor Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Which is interesting because he's a very complex figure.
Very complex. On the one hand, he's celebrated.
Right. He's an athlete, an activist.
Yeah.
But he's also,
controversial.
Very controversial, right?
Yeah, because of his association with the Nation of Islam.
Right. And so the book poses the question, what message was Trump sending by doing that?
Right.
Was it like, an attempt at racial reconciliation?
Right.
Or was he giving a nod to, more Islamic figures?
Yeah. Or was it something else entirely?
Right. It's like everything Trump does is up for interpretation.
Right. Right. But the book seems to argue that even these seemingly meaningless gestures, they can have these hidden meanings.
It's like there's always something else going on.
Right. There's always something else there. Like this ambiguity, this is how power operates.
Oh, interesting. So we've got symbols, we've got hidden meanings.
Right.
And now we're going to talk about presidential fashion choices.
You're talking about the presidential transitions.
Yeah, how the outgoing and incoming presidents often wear very similar clothing.
Right. Like there's a dress code.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's suggesting that visual similarity, that's deliberate. It's meant to symbolize that continuity of power.
Don't worry, everything's fine.
Exactly.
Even though behind the scenes, there's all this change happening.
Yeah, like a changing of the guard, but, the underlying power structure stays the same.
Which goes back to that whole controlled opposition thing.
Exactly.
Like it's all rigged.
Right.
It makes you really feel like there are these forces at play we can't even comprehend.
Definitely makes you think.
Yeah, okay. But for a second, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Operation Warp Speed.
Okay, yeah.
Which was Trump's program to fast-track those COVID-19 vaccines.
Yeah, this is where the book gets a little critical of the government's response to the pandemic.
Yeah, and it does not hold back at all.
No, it does not. It does not.
It's pretty clear that, Holiday has some serious concerns about the safety of those vaccines.
Yeah, especially given how quickly they were developed.
Yeah, exactly.
They're arguing that they bypassed the traditional safety protocols.
It makes you wonder, were there risks that they didn't fully consider?
It's hard to say, but it's a valid question.
And then you've got the whole vaccine mandate issue.
Right.
Which the book basically frames as a huge infringement on our personal freedom.
Right. It's, where do we draw the line between public safety and individual liberty?
That's the question.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. So it's like, even during a global pandemic, there are still these power struggles going on.
Always power struggles.
Always. Yeah. Always somebody trying to grab for more.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody listening, you might want to sit down for this next part because we're about to go full conspiracy theory here.
Okay. Here we go.
It's time to talk about the deep state.
All right. So This is where I think the book really kind of goes down the rabbit hole a little bit.
It does.
But it's interesting nonetheless.
Oh, it is? Yeah.
You know, it explores all these, these hidden forces
Right.
that the author believes are shaping the world.
Yeah, like he talks about, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group. It's like
That's a lot.
it's like a who's who of like shadowy figures.
Right, and they're all working together.
Right, exactly.
To advance this, globalist agenda.
Right, which is often at odds with the average person, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't care about us.
It's a scary thought.
It is a very scary thought.
That there are these people in these positions of power who are actively, working against humanity.
Right. It's like, what can you even do,
It's overwhelming, right?
It is very overwhelming.
But the book does offer something.
Okay.
It says that we need to be aware of these forces.
Okay, knowledge is power. Right.
Exactly. And we need to educate ourselves.
So it's about being like vigilant,
Exactly.
informed.
Informed and engaged. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There's a little light at the end of the tunnel.
There is some hope here.
Okay.
The book, it offers this kind of glimmer of hope that presents this vision of a future united under King David.
Yes. The worldwide and everlasting empire of David.
Right. I mean, you can tell the author is really drawn to King David as this model for,
A good leader.
just a righteous ruler.
I love that.
It's a world where his principles, justice, righteousness, a world without division.
A beautiful idea.
It is.
It's just like, how do we get there?
Right.
How do we bridge these gaps?
Exactly. I mean, the book doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but it does say, I think, that the first step is this shift in our consciousness, recognizing that we're all connected.
We're all on this together.
Yeah, that our shared humanity is more important than our differences.
Like the golden rule, do unto others.
Exactly. It's simple, but powerful, right?
So simple, but so powerful, yeah.
And it could really, it could transform the world.
It would.
If we actually truly embraced it.
It would. It's just like such a far cry from what we see today.
It is. It's a long road ahead.
It is a long road, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, but there's one more thing we need to talk about. Elon Musk.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Right. What's going on there? Because, they talk about him in the book, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, the book actually argues that Trump and Musk's, fates are intertwined. And that they both represent, this centralization of power that could be really dangerous.
Right. He talks about all those ambitious Elon Musk projects. Like Starlink, Neuralink. It's like, they're not just, advancements in technology. It's like they could be used to control us.
Right, to control people on a massive scale.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
And then there's that whole Twitter thing.
Yeah.
Which the book basically says, Elon Musk is using to control what we see and what we talk about online.
Right. And he overpaid for Twitter.
Massively overpaid.
Yeah. So it begs the question, why?
Right. Like, what's his end game?
Exactly.
Oh, man. Okay, this is a lot. So we've got this dystopian future being controlled by billionaires.
They might.
Our minds are being messed with by social media.
It's possible.
And are we about to talk about the depopulation agenda?
Yeah, the book does go there.
Okay. This is getting a little too real for me.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
But the book doesn't shy away from it.
Okay.
It says that there's this coordinated effort to reduce the population. Wars, famine, even manufactured diseases.
It even talks about how the war in Ukraine and the food shortages we're seeing, it's all part of that.
It does.
I don't know. It's scary.
Yeah, and it ties this into the idea of spiritual warfare, saying that this is part of, a satanic plot, essentially.
Okay, I need a minute. So is there any hope?
There is. The author believes that we can get through this.
Okay.
But it'll require a huge shift in how we see the world. We need to reject those narratives that are being used to control us.
So basically we need to wake up.
Yeah, wake up and recognize our own power. We have a choice in how we respond to all of this.
I like that.
We're not powerless.
Yeah.
Unless we choose to be. It's a lot to wrap your head around, right? All this stuff.
It really is. It really is, yeah.
But, before we all spiral into a full-blown existential crisis here,
right.
I'm curious, where does Joe Holliday, the author, even land on all of this?
Yeah.
Because it feels pretty heavy.
It does. It feels like we're teetering on the edge of despair here.
Yeah, and he doesn't, sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
But he does offer, I think, a path forward.
Okay.
And it starts with us.
Okay, tell me more. So you're saying there's hope amidst all this talk of like, shadowy figures and dystopian futures?
Yeah. He says the key is consciousness.
Okay.
We have to wake up and see what's really going on and then choose differently.
So it's not just about like being aware of these problems.
Right.
We actually have to actively resist them.
That's the idea, yeah.
Mm.
The question is, how? Where do we even begin?
Right, exactly.
And, he says it starts with questioning everything, being like really critical thinkers.
Okay.
Don't just accept the things you're told, whether it's coming from politicians or the media or even like so-called experts.
Right.
Do your own research.
Yeah, think for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen to different perspectives and trust your gut.
Yeah, it's about kind of like remembering that you have the power
Yeah.
to decide what you believe.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's like reclaiming your agency. We're not just like these passive consumers of information. We can shape the world around us.
Totally, totally. And that includes like, being mindful of the information that we're consuming, but also the stuff that we're putting out there, right?
Absolutely.
Like, are we adding to the problem by spreading more fear?
Yeah, are we part of the problem or are we part of the solution?
Right, that's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in all the negative stuff, especially with social media, like constantly.
It's like a fire hose of negativity.
It really is. But Holiday also talks about like the importance of our spiritual side, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that's part of it too.
He says it's not enough to just like fight against the darkness. We need to cultivate the light.
I like that.
And that looks different for everyone. It could be prayer or meditation or, going out into nature.
Yeah, whatever connects you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just finding that thing that nourishes your soul.
Yeah, that reminds you that there's something bigger than all of this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because we need that strength. We need that resilience.
We do.
Because it can feel overwhelming.
It really can. It really can, which is why he also talks about community.
Yeah, finding your people.
Finding your people, exactly. Because we don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. So it's about like building bridges, finding that common ground.
Yeah, like remembering that we're all in this together, even if we don't always see eye to eye.
Exactly. We're all human at the end of the day.
That's it.
Well, this has been quite a journey. And I have to say, I'm feeling like all the emotions right now.
I bet. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
Yeah.
I'm a little overwhelmed, a little scared, but also
Yeah.
hopeful, weirdly.
I get it. And I think that's what the book does really well.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, but it leaves you with this sense of like, you can do this.
Empowerment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we have a choice in how we respond.
It's a call to action,
Yeah.
like we can make a difference.
Exactly. We all have that power.
Well, thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive through, Joe Holiday's mind, basically.
It was my pleasure. This book is quite a ride.
And to our listeners, we hope this has inspired you to like really think critically, question everything.
Yeah. Don't believe everything you hear.
And never lose hope.
Never lose hope. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.